My name is Anne. Welcome to your Reverse Garbage Queensland virtual workshop of puppets, marionette puppets to be more specific, but puppets of any kind really is something that you can build from this box. So this workshop is really good fun, as it always is with us, but it will also help you in your schoolwork. So if you are in grades 4 to 6 and you might be learning about identity, or you might be looking at design and technology of moving parts, then the things I'm going to show you today will actually be really handy when you do that section at your school. But primarily what we want you to have is fun and build something that's going to be really fun for you to make a little story out of. Maybe you can reenact your own storybook, your favourite storybook, make your favourite character, or invent your whole new one from your imagination and do a little puppet show for your family. Okay, so you can see my puppets up the back here. I've got them all ready to talk about in a minute, and you can have a really good look at them, see which one you might like to make. We've also got some ones that are a bit less complicated if you want to just try something really simple to start with. And then we're going to go through all the materials that you've received, maybe some things you can find in your own home, how we're going to join things together, and what kind of tools you might need to collect or that you've already collected that you're going to use today. Okay, so you should have received on your doorstep, either by one of our lovely delivery people from Reverse Garbage Queensland or from a courier, a big box or bag of materials. All the materials that come to us were heading for landfill for the rubbish tip, so we have rescued them. They're all nice and clean and ready to use by you for different creative uses. So they were used for something, now you're going to use them for something else, and that's how it's different to, say, recycling something or just throwing it away. So for instance, this is a really good one, and the one that you'll use in this workshop if you want to make a marionette puppet. So these are beautiful dance magazines that have lots of great pictures of dancers. So if you're going to make a puppet that's going to do some dancing, this is a really good place to start. Have a look through. You might find some really good pictures of people and see how their limbs are kind of spread out, so you can cut them out really nicely, stick them to some card, and then you've already got your figure rather than having to make it up. Now the card we sent you in your box will look like this. And it's called a drop file. So it's from a filing system, something that you might find in an office, might be in your mum and dad's office, and you usually put things inside and keep them all nice and together. But these things are very hard to recycle because they're made of metal. These ones are cardboard. Sometimes it's plasticized cardboard, so it's cardboard that has plastics in it. So we can't sort of mulch it up and make it into new paper. But really good for this activity, because if you open it out, nice and clean inside, so really good surface, nice and strong, and really handily, these pieces here are really good for bending. So later on we'll show you how I've used these, detached this, and used some of these metal bendy pieces to make the little stays for your marionette. So cardboard, magazine, some foam. This is really great because it's nice and light. You can cut it to the shape that you want, so you might want to use it to stick something through to help something stay together, or you can use it as part of the form of your puppet, bodies and things like that. Different kinds of foam there. What else do we have in here? Some plastics, some translucent or see-through plastics. These would be great maybe if you wanted to do a shadow puppet. So a shadow puppet is where it's a plain form against a backlit form, and you can dance around and create shadows. It's pretty cool. What else do we have? Silver things, some things for bodies, so maybe a cup, some cups in there, some of these like Slurpee top things, they might be good. Maybe even I can see you might make a skirt out of that one for a dancer. What else do we have? Oh, here we are. So you're really lucky. We very rarely get these things at Reverse Garbage Queensland because most people use them up, but we did have some, luckily enough, and we've provided some for you in this box so that you can make your head for your puppet, or think about maybe a planet, something like that. Really lucky to get those. What else do we have? Some sponges. Okay, so these are really good. Again, they're made of foam, so you can stick wire or something hard through the middle to create a little body for your puppet. Very handy. Really important part of your puppet is to be able to dangle it on the string. So I've already talked to you about the metal part from the drop file, but we also included some unused chopsticks because they would make a really good base for a little marionette puppet. And if you have a look at Nellie here, I've even used the packaging from the chopsticks to make her beautiful little hairstyle. So don't waste anything. It's just how you think about it. Lots of interesting things in a bag like this. So you've got some cardboard in the cards like that, leather, stars. What else do we have in here? Fabric. So if you have a look at the ballerina over here, she's got a beautiful fabric dress. You might want to add some of that. Sticky materials. Ooh. So a box of stickers, great for making faces. You can cut shapes out for cheeks and eyes. Really good. And lots of little bits and pieces, so great for legs and hands. Maybe some features if you've got a robot or a monster puppet of some kind. Really important, you'll find a little bundle of this stuff. It's wire, it's very easy to cut and very easy to move around. It'll be very, very useful for your puppet. I'll show you about that later. What else do we have in here? That's probably about all. But it's a really interesting big box of materials. So have a little look inside and go for an explore, and then think about maybe the things you can collect from your own home. Okay, so we've showed you the materials that we've sent to you, and some of these things you might find, the things that you find in the box, you might find at home anyway, but I thought I'd point out some interesting things that you might be able to find around your own house that you can reuse. So of course, rubber bands are incredibly useful and often just end up in the bin because we just don't know where to put them. So start your own little collection of rubber bands because you just never know how you're going to use those. They're very useful things. Straws. Often we go down and have a smoothie or something at a cafe, and we get a straw. Now, if we take that home and just make sure we clean it out first, then leave it on the side, then you can use it for all sorts of things. And we use straws a lot. These ones actually came to us from a project that someone did, so they're completely clean, but you know, we shouldn't be putting them in the bin, should be using them up. Lids, all kinds of lids. Start your lid collection. They're really useful for counters, for games, for little character pieces, for wheels, for a wheelie toy, all sorts of things. I can see this one could be a rocket ship or a top hat. Even the metal ones can be useful maybe for rattles, things like that. So start your lid collection, and of course corks. So we shouldn't be wasting these either. These are incredibly useful things. They're really easy to cut into pieces. They're made out of bark, so they're a wood product. They do biodegrade, which is great. So if you're going to throw them in the bin, maybe try the compost. But make sure you use them up first. They've got a bit of weight to them, so they can be handy for your puppets. All sorts of interesting things. They float. So have a look around your house and see what you can find. Maybe there's alfoil, maybe there's some plastics, some colourful plastics that you can collect to help with your puppet or your making in general. But don't waste anything. We shouldn't be putting little as possible into landfill. Okay, in this section of the video, I'm going to tell you how to join your things together. Now, you probably already know some of the ways to join things together. Maybe you recognise something like this. So with this is sticky tape, and it's something that we don't use at Reverse Garbage Queensland because people don't throw it away. They usually use it up. So we don't use it in our workshops, but I know you have this around the home, so you should give it some use in this workshop as well. Challenge yourself not to, but you can obviously use it. We use this in place of sticky tape. So it's a sticky back material, like a sticker. It comes in big sheets and we chop it up into little pieces, and we've got some of it for you. So you can use it just in place of sticky tape to join things together, or you can use it to add features to your puppet. So you might want to make some tiger stripes with some black and yellow perhaps, or you could make eyes or eyelashes or mouths. You can see on some of the puppets how we've already added some features using the stickers. You've also got sticky back foam. So this again has a back on it which you peel away, and then you can use it in place of sticky tape, or you can use it again for features. It's got a really nice tactile feel to it. One thing about these two pieces is once you peel the back off, you've got this really annoying plasticized paper, which unfortunately isn't recyclable. Make sure you pop it straight into the bin rather than let it fly around the house, okay? It's a really good tip. So you've got sticky materials. At Reverse Garbage Queensland in our workshops, we use a hot glue tool sometimes. You may have one at home. I would suggest that in this particular workshop, they're not actually that useful, but if you have one, have it over to the side. You never know, you might use it. But if you are using it, be really, really careful. You'll know it gets very, very hot. Make sure there's an adult around before you have a go. Other kinds of glue, craft glue, PVA, that white stuff you see in the classroom could be useful. Takes a while to dry though. Other ways of joining. So I often ask my students, how else could you join something if you weren't using sticky tape or glue? And it can be a bit of a challenge, but this is a particularly good tip for marionette puppets because you want them to do that moving thing. You don't want them to be stuck like they've been glued together. So you've got string in your materials box. This is very useful both for the parts that jingle jangle around, but it could also be useful to join the parts that need to move on the body. So string, and I would say probably most importantly, wire. So you'll have a little bundle in your materials box. It is very useful because it holds its shape. You can twist it around so that it can hold a part together, but hold it loosely so you've still got that movement rather than nice and tight. So very, very useful thing to use for this workshop. Now you can see with Nellie and with this little ballet dancer, we've got some little joints using those white dots. So that I'll show you what those ones look like. So these are these white dots. They're made of paper. Now, the way we're able to make her move her arms is by poking some holes in them and then joining them together so that the parts can move around. We'll do a little close-up of that in a minute, but make sure you seek these ones out if you're going to make a marionette that's going to dance around and use those with the wire. You could also use a stapler, that could be handy. What other ways do you think you could join things together? In this section, I'm going to talk to you about the tools you can use when you're making your puppets today. If you don't have some of these tools, don't worry, there's ways around things. If you do have them, track them down, collect them so they're just on hand, you don't have to stop your making. Make sure you don't go and buy new tools, okay? You don't need to. I'm sure there's all the things in your house. So I've got all my tools here, but one of the biggest things that I find useful when I'm making is actually to have a little rubbish bin right near me when I'm doing my making, so that I don't have to get up and put something in the bin, or if I don't feel a bit lazy about getting up to put something in the bin, I just leave it on the floor. So have a little bin in front of you. This one's made out of an old juice bottle or milk bottle. Just cut the top off, then you've got a desktop bin. Really very useful. Some of the things you might recognize, so something like a stapler. Now this is a really big one, so it's quite powerful. You might have a little dinky one. If you've got one of these, track it down. If not, don't worry about it. Scissors. So these are in fact fabric scissors, special fabric scissors. So we don't really use these on anything other than fabric because they're nice and sharp, but grab yourself a pair of paper scissors. Your normal school scissors are fine, but if you've got fabric scissors, grab them. A pen or pencil. Again, we try not to use them, but you might need it for this particular workshop for placing different things to get your limbs working. What else do we have? This is called a Stanley or a box cutter, Stanley knife. Very sharp, only use it when you've got an adult around. And if you're using something like this, you might want to get a protective surface to do your cutting on. So I've got this cutting mat here. You could use a cutting board or some old material just on the top because you don't want to cut into mum and dad's tabletop. Hole punch, ruler can be useful. Needle and thread may be useful, I don't know. You never know. These two things here, if you do have them, that would be great because they'll be really useful to cut the wire that I was talking about earlier. So this one is a wire cutter. You can see the blades just there. They can cut the wire for you. This one is something that can manipulate wire, so you can squeeze it together and then turn it around. The wire that we've provided for you is actually really soft. You can do it with your hands, but if you have a pair of these, you never know, you might be able to bend some plastic with it too. So they're some tools that I used. Tell me if there's any other tools that I've forgotten or something that you would find useful. Okay, I'm just going to explain a little bit more about how to understand and make a marionette puppet. So a marionette is something that can move their limbs by using strings by a puppeteer. So this little dancer, you can see she can move her arms, and if I pull the strings here, she can move her arms up. And then you could add strings to her legs too, but she doesn't actually have strings on her legs, but she can do little movements with her legs because she's got articulated joints. So to create the ability to move that way, we need to make sure that the joints in her body and legs can move freely, just like yours. So if you think about your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists, your ankles, your knees, and your hips, they're all parts of your body that can move. You could, if you want to be really complicated, make her midsection move as well, but we'll talk about the arms and the legs for now. So if you have a look at the back of this little lady, she has these joints. So we've cut 2 pieces of plastic, or one piece, we've cut it in half. Then we have poked a hole all the way through both of them, and then we've created this little button joint. So it goes all the way through and then is attached, so she can bend her legs up and down, and at her waist she can move her legs out like this. So if you attached a string to her knee, she could move her leg this way as well. Same with her shoulder and her elbow. I haven't done hands for her on this one. So attaching to her body with that little button joint, and the same with her elbow. And that means she can move and dance the way we want her to. Now, obviously, with a marionette, we're talking about strings as well. That's a little bit complicated, so don't cut your strings first, okay, to the length you want. You need to leave them nice and long so that you can always trim them down to exactly the length that you need. Now, to do that, I'm going to have to lay her down like this. So you've made the body of your puppet, you've made sure that all the limbs can move. Now it's time to add the strings. So we lie her out, and then think about what you're going to use as the top part. So I've used the metal from the drop file, or you can use the chopsticks as we talked about earlier. Place that at the length that you want your puppet to be dancing. So if you've got a really big stage, you might want it to be very, very high up, a long piece of string. If you've got a little stage, a little cardboard box stage that you've made, you might want them to be quite short. So think about that part first. Then what you want to do is get the material that you're going to use for the lengths of string and pull out 3 or 4 pieces, however many parts your limbs are. Leave them really long, much longer than you think you will need, because you want to think about how you're going to adjust them. Then lay them out next to the limbs that you want to attach, and then work on attaching them to the top part of your frame. Just do that loosely. Don't tie it off really tightly first, because you probably will need to adjust those a little bit as you go. And then once you're completely done, you could tie them off, maybe leave a little bit of length there so that you can adjust it again later on, halfway through the show or something. But don't do everything first, okay? Leave it nice and long and see how you go. Okay, so now we're up to the part where you can make your puppet your own. So we've talked about how to build the puppet, how to join the parts together, how to use the different materials we have to make your puppet have a face or arms or things. And these are the ones that we've created. So I wanted to show you so that you can have a little maybe piece of inspiration of how to make your own. So let's run through them. Firstly, we have our marionette puppets. So they're the ones that are on strings that you should be able to move their arms or maybe their legs. They're more lifelike, I guess. So start with our little very hungry caterpillar. So you can see that he's made out of little bottle caps, milk bottle caps. Maybe you've collected some yourself. There's a few in the box yourself. Use some of the sticky to attach his little legs. And if you have a look from behind, is actually joined together with wire. So you can poke holes in the sides of the bottle caps and then just join together with wire, and that helps him move about a bit more as opposed to just being in one long strip. So he's got that sort of caterpillar kind of action to him. Next we have our lovely ballerina dancer, Prima Ballerina. She has, again, we've used, same as this one, some of the drop file metal. So you can cut that off the top of the drop file and use it as your mainstay at the top. She can move her arms and her legs, you can see. So if you're moving your puppet around, she's got little dancer feet on the bottom there. Then we've got our little girl, and we can move her arms. Her legs aren't attached to the marionette strings, but they are weighted down, so they can do a little dance. And with those ones, you can see we've weighted them with a cork, slice of cork and a bottle cap. And then her arms move, whoop, just dancing too much. Okay. Over these two, we have our Swan Lake ballerinas. So these ones were cut from the dancing magazine that you would have received. So cut out their shapes, but then you'll see how if you cut out parts of their body, then you can make those to move individually. Oh dear, oh dear. So you can see how her little skirt can move around a little bit. Make sure you stay up there. Now, this one here is a bit more complicated, and that's why he's fallen down on me. See if I can put him back together. So his legs and his arms move separately to his body, so that's why he can do this funny splits and dancing tricks like that. It's pretty good fun. I think if you're really clever, you could get your whole dancing magazine and cut out a whole troupe of ballet dancers, and then enlist your whole family to do a whole Swan Lake or something. That would be amazing. Put on some music. That would be pretty cool. This little lass over here, she's very simple. So she's just joined with one piece at the top here, and she just does her little jig with one piece of foam, some big eyes, and some silvery bits for her legs. Now, these are a bit more complicated, and I know you can do it, but if you want to make a simpler puppet as well, there's a few other different things. So the old paddle pop stick or lolly stick puppet, that's really good because they can just pop up from underneath the scenery. This one here is a dragon. So you can see we've concertinaed the paper in the middle there, and then attached the straws at either end to make him do his little dragon dancing. And these cuties over here, they have what we call articulated limbs, which means you can get them to move. So articulated is when you can they can sort of have knees and elbows and things like that. So these ones are the same. We've got elbows here, we've got knees for the dancers, but these ones can just do their own little thing, sit on the side of the table. You could add strings to them so that they could move their arms up and wave to the audience. Sometimes puppeteers actually just have one like this and then are able to animate as they hold the puppet against the screen. So you could make one of those ones. There we are. And my last puppet is a bit different. And she, or he, it, is a bit of a kind of space age creature. Got a bit of a middle section that you could hide something in there and reveal it as part of your show. And we've used wire as the legs and arms because they're really good to mold into different shapes. So if you want to create your story, but use the limbs to make more of the story come to life, using wire is a really good way to do it. It's a really good thing to use if you're going to do some stop motion, which is, all these puppets are really great for stop motion video, but wire is a really, really handy thing because it kind of holds its shape. So there's so many different options for your puppets, and I can't wait to see your puppets and what you make and how you use the different reuse materials to get your limbs to move and dance around in your stage, okay? Make sure you let us know on Facebook or Instagram, post up some pictures. If you need to watch this video again at all, then you can head over to RGQ TV and then you can pause it where you need to, check you're doing something right, and don't forget I'm going to be online to answer any of your questions if you need to on our live show on Wednesday. Thanks, bye.